We just had a really interesting conversation about how we grapple with the risks of sea level rise in a changing climate. And sea level rise is interesting because they're big certainties. Warmer water takes up more space. Glaciers on land are melting into the ocean. At the same time that there's a big range of possible outcomes, especially regarding how fast the ice sheets might flow and collapse into the oceans. So we talked about how to understand the processes at play, what makes an ice sheet vulnerable to collapse. We talked about how to communicate the risks, the fact that sea level rise is kind of like taking a basketball court, raising up the floor a foot, and now everyone can make a slam dunk. We also talked about what it means to prepare for these changing risks and the fact that Americans, the world as a whole, need to go from something like a 1 or a 2-star rating in coastal resilience to a 5-star rating. And getting to 5 stars is going to mean figuring out responses that we've never really done before, from relocating infrastructure to making room for the river to incorporating nature into the picture as well. There were a lot of key themes that came up in the dialogue, and it was an uncommon dialogue. So some of them were, how do we think about actually implementing solutions? To date, we've done a lot of assessment of the risks and plan for what we may do into the future, but we're just starting that process of actually taking action to become more prepared. Some of the questions also revolved around national flood insurance and the fact that in many different places, in the US for sure, the priority of cities is to develop and to have property taxes, for example, at the same time that oftentimes the federal government is the one that picks up the bill at the end of the day, and that's a really important dynamic that we need to grapple with moving forward. Communication was a really big theme in the discussion, and in some ways you could say sea level rise has some easy wins in the communication space. People love the coast. They think of beaches, they think of water and sun. We as a human species have gravitated towards the water. That's the easy part. The hard part is the fact that we don't know exactly how much sea level rise will happen and when, and communicating the fact that the odds are changing, but in terms of moving forward, we need to make some decisions where we won't know the future for sure. That's pretty much like everything else we do, but it's particularly challenging given the fact that we have millions of people in the US right there at the water's edge.